get straight in daylight. Love gets straight in daylight. And with just half of the sunburn, you yellow like that iron. Step back and he.
Hello, welcome everybody. We're so excited to have you here tonight. Thank you for believing in Girls on the Run and for joining us just to see how we're doing. I also want to say we're really grateful to Sovereign, to Apple Autos, to Haddad Consulting for supporting tonight's event. My name is Mary Uran. I'm the Executive Director of Girls on the Run. I'm really looking forward to sharing the ups and downs, the glows and grows of the last 8 months, and excited to also be in conversation with you as we answer question and answers later on.
Yes, I'm excited to be here with you too. I'm Kathleen Cannon. I'm our program director. And Mary, ups and downs are right when we talk about 2020. And I think with all these ups and downs, we have had a really renewed sense of gratitude for you, our community, and just this supportive, invested, outstanding community that makes up our Girls on the Run Council. So I know we have a fantastic mix of people who are on tonight. I know for a fact we got some coaches, we got some caregivers, we got girls, we got donors, we got principals, we got grandparents, we got teachers, board members and general supporters, and whoever else you are. We would love to hear it in the chat. So if you'll take a second to open up that chat box and share how you're connected to Girls on the Run. And maybe it's, I don't have a connection yet and I'd like to, and that is fine too. We'd love to see who's here. Hello, hello.
It's so great to see so many wonderful names that we recognize, especially as we're like still new to this Zoom thing. So bear with us tonight. So the State of Girls on the Run, the first annual one, is just how it sounds, an update on the state of Girls on the Run in this, shall we say, unusual year. So we're gonna hear from not just me and Kathleen, although we could probably make it a fun hour. We're gonna hear from girls, of course, and coaches, a principal from a school, and a board member, and Kathleen and I will provide an organizational update. And as we go, if you have questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. We've also got some great questions from your registration forms as well. And so let's just jump right in and feel free to keep jumping in the chat to also share how you're involved with Girls on the Run. I am not going to sugarcoat it. It has been a challenging 8 months. We know that girls are isolated and that families are struggling. 79% of girls have reported that they feel isolated and lonely now more than they ever did before COVID. Stress levels are amplified. I'm sure we can all agree with that right now. And all the uncertainty from routine gone awry is taking its toll, both on girls and grown-ups. And it's so much to hold. I'm really grateful that we have with us tonight Terrence Thigpen, the Dean of Students at Laura Jeffrey Academy in St. Paul, and a Girls on the Run board member, here to talk to us about how girls are doing and what's happening in his community.
Hello, Terrence Thigpen here, Dean of Students at Laura Jeffrey Academy and Girls on the Run board member. Much of the work that I do on a day-to-day basis is centered around the physical and emotional well-being of youth. While 2020 has presented us with circumstances that at times have seemed insurmountable, Girls on the Run in particular has continued to adapt and mold itself in a way that will continue to serve our youth and our broader communities. Girls on the Run does a really wonderful job of making sure that our youth have opportunities to connect with a trusted adult, to connect with youth and their similar circumstances, and to have outlets for physical activity whenever they meet. While the year 2020 has presented our young people with a global pandemic, a social and political uprising, I'm confident that the skills that they obtain through participating in Girls on the Run will give them tools to be able to deal with this current situation that they're faced with and lifelong situations that they might encounter.
As usual, Terrence, speaking truth. When we talk about these social and emotional components of Girls on the Run being more valuable than ever, Terrence, you're exactly right. So those of you who know a little bit about what we teach, we want you to vote on your favorite tool in the Girls on the Run toolbox. If we can swing it poll-wise, and I think we can, you'll have a poll pop up here. And I know it's an impossible question because all of these skills are important and these aren't even all the skills, but if you have been leaning into any in 2020, or if you've got a favorite top of mind, go ahead and vote in the poll. And while you do that, let's rewind a little bit to spring 2020 and flash back to the beginning of the pandemic. And that is briefly, okay? I don't want to remember it that much, and I bet you don't either. But honestly, the timing could not have been much worse for Girls on the Run as an organization. Nearly 1,000 volunteers had completed their extensive training for our spring season. Nearly 3,000 girls were registered, and our spring 2020 season was scheduled to begin, who remembers this, on March 16th, right when everything was falling apart. Many coaches had labeled their girls' water bottles for distribution. They bought their snacks already for week 1. They had photocopies made and background checks were in and the whole bit. Some of you will remember that we held out hope for a week or two, like most of the world, that maybe we could postpone instead of having to cancel the whole thing. And when we realized that was not to be, we shifted to meet the moment. First of all, by honoring volunteers who had poured their whole souls into preparing for what would have been an awesome season. We didn't want coaches to find out that the season was fully canceled through the grapevine or through social media, given all that they've put into it. So we sent almost 1,000 voicemails to them individually before making the public announcement that the season was canceled. We also invited coaches to join us for a virtual, some of you will remember this, toast to the season that might have been, just to carve out some space for the grief that we were feeling around so many lost events, but particularly the 10 weeks that we were ready to spend together. And then we got to work with the most immediate tasks. Things like how to issue refunds quickly to families that needed it, many facing sudden unemployment, while also inviting people who were in a position to donate their program fee to show their support. It was a really devastating time, honestly, for our organization, both financially and emotionally. In what can only be considered an outstanding show of support, more than 450 families who are registered for spring chose to donate all or part of their program fee to Girls on the Run. Then we went into full reimagining mode, trying to re-envision the whole thing just to meet girls where they were in the spring. Because we knew that those skills were as valuable as ever. And okay, when I said skills, it reminded me, yes, we need closure on these poll results. All of them is the winner. Is that what I see? Okay, with stop and take a breather. I've been doing that all week about like 100 things. Yes, but I see positive self-talk, I feel when you, and empathy all close behind, because we know it's more than relevant. So we started a Girls on the Run Pen Pal program in April and May. We developed some at-home lessons that girls could do alone or follow along with a video. And we launched a coach book club that we've been calling Coaches on Couches and more. We also planned a virtual 5K celebration for May 30th as a way to be in community while apart, even though we didn't have a regular season to be celebrating the end of. Now that week, of course, is when George Floyd was murdered and our communities were ablaze, grappling with grief and rage and really significant unrest. And at Girls on the Run, I mean, right away, we canceled the virtual 5K plans for the weekend and invited every participant to repurpose that time and use it to serve their community. Some of our Girls on the Run school communities were directly impacted by all the civil unrest, even in that week or the following week. So we worked directly with them and with the help of many of you who are on tonight to launch a real quick community impact project was an organization-led version of what our teams do every season, just mobilizing quickly to get some items like a lot of diapers, toilet paper, hot sauce, things like that in the hands of families who needed it when stores were closed and public transportation wasn't running. And after triaging some of those most immediate needs in the first week or two of crisis, with the support of our board and volunteers, we have really been trying to double down on our long-term commitment to center and to celebrate Black lives and Black women and girls while deepening our anti-racism work as an organization, which we'll talk more about shortly.
So we quickly realized that we needed to reimagine our own strategic plan and our goals for the year and basically virtually everything that we had planned. And so we quickly identified 4 main goals for the rest of 2020. And the first one really was at the center of everything, provide accessible programming to girls in creative and safe ways, whatever that might mean. And that changed, a million times between April and this fall. And we really wanted to do it through leveraging existing volunteers, so many of you who are on tonight. We wanted to approach everything that we did and all of the decision making, the hard decisions we had to make through an IDEA lens. And when we talk about IDEA, it's inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, and with IDEA as a top priority. We want to sustain long-term relationships. That's why we're here tonight, so that we have open and honest conversations with everyone who's given their all, between coaches, girls, families, partners, and donors, and staff. And we got to put this number on the board. We wanted to close $280,000 funding gap through increased individual giving, grants, activating corporate partnerships in new and unique ways. And so over the summer, we piloted brand new lessons designed for the virtual space, knowing that each school and neighborhood might need a mix of in-person and virtual programming, and that guess came true. So let's hear how it's gone from the summer pilot to the fall programming.
Hi, my name is Jonna Bratt. I am a program coordinator at Girls on the Run Twin Cities, and I helped out with the pilot program that we ran in June. During that pilot, we were trying out the virtual lessons as they were happening with a small group of girls, getting their feedback at the end of every lesson, immediately incorporating that as we went through and made the whole virtual curriculum. That's being used all across the country this fall. Overall, it was a really positive experience. It was so nice to every morning start my day with a genuine connection point with girls. It was all throughout the month of June, which was a very heavy time in our state and in our country, and there was a lot to hold at that time. And so it was very much a breath of fresh air having this moment to see girls, hear their voices, and just connect with them in that space. And not only the girls, but also having a chance to kind of collaborate and connect with my co-coach, which as an adult as well is something that has been kind of missing in the year of 2020. So overall, I would definitely say it was one of the highlights of my year so far and one of the most just wholeheartedly positive experiences that I got during this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Kat, Program Coordinator here at Girls on the Run, wanting to share a little bit about my experience with the GOTR pilot that we had this past June. It was definitely an interesting time being able to coach in a virtual space. What made it more fun was being able to coach both Girls on the Run and Heart and Soul within the same week of each other. I got to see the very stark contrast between the two groups. Our Girls on the Run crew were definitely more willing to verbally share and wanting to see each other's pets, wanting to know each other's favorite colors, favorite foods, what were they doing for their birthdays, or what their summer plans were, and all these things that they were up to. Whereas our Heart and Soul group were a lot more reserved, and that was totally okay. We got to use the chat box more with our Heart and Soul crew. And also, I think it's important to acknowledge that we communicate in different ways. And some of us are not verbal processors and would prefer a more step back approach when engaging with folks. But despite the difference in communication, the connections were there, the engagements were there, and it was still a lot of fun.
For girls that were participating in the pilot, we did get to definitely see them connect with one another. I was coaching two separate Girls on the Run teams, so I got to see the way the whole team personalities emerged, with one noisy, sillier team, and then one team that was a little bit more quiet and focused during the lessons. And then not only those team personalities overall, but also the individual girls on their own level. We got to see them, some be comfortable in the virtual space right away, and other ones that took a little bit of time to warm up. One thing that I noticed that I really appreciated about the virtual space was that there were a few girls on both teams that seemed to connect well in that space, maybe even more so than they would in person. There is some flexibility with the virtual space where it's a little bit of a smaller group. And girls can also chat, not only speaking out loud, but sometimes for girls that want to spend a little bit more time thinking things over or being careful about how they say things, or just might be a little bit more shy in general, they could type messages in the chat. So it allowed different ways for girls to connect that they were comfortable with. Girls also would do some hand signals, so if they agreed with somebody or had a connection point, there were unique ways to express that we got to see them bring to life on the online space.
One of my favorite memories with our GOTR pilot was when one of our Girls on the Run participants decided to take their practice outside on their trampoline. And that was totally okay in the moment because she was still engaged in doing the warm up with us. It's just when it came down to digging into the lesson more that day, we did ask her to go for a more suitable place for her to engage. So the flexibility is there, the fun is there, and I think that is so important to meeting girl needs right now is bringing that balance of fun and structure in the time that we live in right now.
One story that I did want to share from the pilot, and I know some of our coaches that we trained this fall have heard this story, but for the rest of you, just to share a little bit about the impact that this had. With one of the teams, we had a girl on it who was a little bit quieter. It was the sillier, more rambunctious team that I was coaching, and she was the one that was always hesitant to raise her hand. If we called on her to share, she would ask us to pass it on to somebody else. She just didn't seem to ready to open up, at least in the beginning. And it was about the third practice when all the rest of the girls were signing off one by one, and she was the last one on the call. So you say, okay, goodbye, we'll see you on Thursday, time to sign off. And she says, no, I don't want to sign off. I don't want practice to be over. And that was such a light bulb moment for me, where I could see how clearly this one girl who I thought maybe was the least interested, the least there for the practice mentally, she was totally loving every moment of it, didn't want the practice to end, and had just been really craving that chance to connect with some other girls and coaches and just have that shared time together. So that was a really special moment to me that I definitely will not forget.
It's so important to invest in young girls right now, to be able to provide some form of balance of fun and structure and creativity is so needed right now in the space that we are living in, where there's really no structure in our lives and time is so elusive. I don't know if it is for you, but it definitely is for me. And to be able to connect and engage with girls and to let them know that they're not alone in this is so important. And I think that's what we do here at Girls on the Run, is to really provide that community space for them.
From this pilot, I walked away with a lot of hope from our girls, and I really left with the idea that as we're in a time of so many transitions, as we're learning how to do so many things in different ways than we've ever done before, by learning directly from girls, by listening to them, by using their ideas, we can create so many things better than they've ever been before. So I left with that idea and just all the joy and silliness and happy moments that they shared with us, which I'm so grateful for.
Hi, I'm Scott Taylor, principal of Park Brook Elementary in the Osseo area schools. I feel very fortunate to have Girls on the Run as a part of our school. Girls on the Run and their mission fits so nice with what we are doing at Park Brook. We have a Focus on Fitness initiative for the purpose of increasing positive behaviors and academic growth. Research is so clear that if you increase fitness, you increase academic growth and positive behaviors. But Girls on the Run is so much more than running. Yes, running is a part of it, but it's also that character development. I also see that girls have the ability to form tight-knit relationships with each other, a place where they belong, where they feel as though they are known. So not only have I been a principal who supports Girls on the Run, I have also been a running buddy, which is a very special time. Being able to go on a 5K with one of the girls, to talk, to encourage, and to know that I am there supporting them makes a big difference in the school as well. I have teachers who are coaches. And what I see is that the teachers can also build those relationships with the girls in a different way than you can during the school day. When I think about what is missing from our school this year, there is a lot of changes because of COVID-19. But one big thing that is missing is Girls on the Run. And also, not just the day-to-day or the weekly meetings that they have, but also the 5K. It is amazing to be there on a Saturday or Sunday morning at school as the kids arrive with their parents. We have a breakfast to prepare for the run with some yogurt and cereal, and then we board the bus. There's been years when I've just been there to cheer the girls on, and times when I've also been a running buddy. But it's that community element that makes such a difference in a school. Because it's not just that Park Brook is a place where girls come, but I think that Girls on the Run helps make it their school, a place where they belong and where they are known. When I think about our academic growth at Park Brook and the number of positive comments we receive regarding the behaviors of students at Park Brook, I have to think that Girls on the Run plays a critical part of making this difference in the lives of our students.
Anine, my name is Shauna Coons, and my GOTR name is Safety Shauna. I've been a GOTR coach for 2 seasons now, and this summer I also participated in the Grow with GOTR program.
I'm Helpful Helen, and I've also been doing Girls on the Run for 2 years, and I enjoy running with friends, and it's a very fun activity for me.
So one thing I've been really grateful about GOTR this year and during COVID is it's been a really good opportunity to connect with kids, the kids in the neighborhood and the kids in the community. I really enjoy seeing them at practice and just getting to know the kids that my kids hang out with at school. It's also just another way to connect with some coaches too, to support each other and work through this together.
GOTR is really fun, and you can make new friends, and it teaches you life skills. Like one we got taught was choosing friends, and you don't have to choose a friend that you don't want to play with or that you don't have anything in common with.
So one of the other lessons I learned this year is about balance and how to maintain some sort of sanity and balance with all of this that's happening. And I found that if you can just find some small ways to incorporate a little bit of that balance into your life, it helps out. Whether, for me, it's coaching GOTR 1 day a week and having that connection to the community and feeling like I'm making a contribution, or to just taking a walk outside with a friend once a month. That way you can connect and maintain some of those friendships.
One thing that I liked about GOTR is last year we had to run in the snow, and it was kind of tough at first, but then we all figured it out and we pushed through it, and then we all got congratulated at the end, and it was pretty fun.
So one of the things I really enjoy about GOTR is seeing the girls' faces when they're finishing their laps and those big smiles and all their excitement. And it's just really infectious, and I love cheering them on and encouraging them to finish hard. And so I'm really grateful that I still have that opportunity, and that's one of those pieces that really gives me the star power and gives me the energy and enthusiasm to kind of make it through these tough weeks and make it through the days. So some things have changed because of COVID. But some things are still the same, and it's nice to be able to spend time with my daughter and to participate and meet all the other kids. And we look forward to celebrating more with GOTR over the years. Bye.
Bye. Hello, my name is Camila, and I'm good. And a way that Girls on the Run is very fun. It's taught me friendship and how we can help our community, and good things about girls because sometimes boys say girls can't do stuff, but inside you're you can't do this, but outside is you're strong enough to do something that boys think you can't do when you can do it. A way that I would say to a girl that wants to participate but she's not sure that she wants to do it, I would say Girls on the Run is very fun. I think you should join because they have lap counters, and there's a lot of girls that have a lot of empathy and to be brave of something you're scared
10 years ago, I started to take up running, and I found it to be such a rewarding, easy sport. And I love how Girls on the Run combines running with important life lessons for our girls. I wish Girls on the Run had existed when I was Camila's age. It would have given me strength and encouragement that every girl, in my mind, could use at this time in their lives, especially now during COVID and so much of the unrest and uncertainty that we've seen throughout the Twin Cities.
Girls on the Run is a fun thing for me to do if I'm bored, because there's a lot of cool exercises like jumping jacks and other things, and you can connect with your friends, and it's just a good concept to learn, especially when you're a girl and when you need the strength and braveness that Girls on the Run gives you and the power.
I would encourage any girl out there who has heard about Girls on the Run or would simply like an activity to do and learn about important skills, but also be a part of a safe and nurturing team. Girls on the Run is for you. As a coach, if there are any grown-ups out there who have wondered about whether or not they could be a coach, really anybody can be a coach with Girls on the Run, as long as you are dedicated to the strengthening and empowering our girls.
Yes, Girls on the Run is so much fun.
That is so great. I loved that. I loved hearing from all of them. I'm always happy to hear from Jonna and Kat, and then Principal Scott Taylor's comments about connection and belonging, and then hearing Shauna and Helen from Monica just sharing about friendship. And can I just say, mega highlight balance. I hear you on the balance situation, Shauna. And then Monica and Camilla sharing about empathy and courage. Like, that's everything I need right now. And it's such a really meaningful reminder that all the stuff that makes Girls on the Run is still here. You know, that the magic is not canceled, even if it's not what we're used to. I love that. And I might need to rewatch it when I need a pep talk, because hearing from all of you there was really wonderful. And as you can see, everyone's doing their best to make the best situation they can out of what's an impossible situation in many ways. We have one more week left of our fall 2020 season. And we've been leaning into the flexibility of this virtual space, even though some of our teams are able to meet in person with some adaptations for COVID. Most of our teams are meeting virtually, and that has allowed for our first ever midday practices. We have some practices happening at noon right now. And we were able to bust out an evening virtual option with one team where practices end at 7 p.m. So we've been able to spice up our life with that. We've got just over 40 different teams participating with this mix of fully virtual and in-person and a combination of the two. So I want you to guess how many different schools are represented in those 40 teams, 40-ish teams I put. How many school communities? So I'll give you a minute to do that. Well, we talk about a few silver linings or things that we're learning that we can take with us into the rest of 2020 and 2021 and beyond. With all of this innovation and change, we've learned a lot over the last 8 months. So a few things that stick out to us that we wanted to share with you. And the first one is middle school engagement. It's so high in the virtual space. Who knew? This is one of my biggest surprises for 2020. This might be the way that we crack the code with reaching older girls. Our Heart and Soul teams filled up right away in the virtual space. And this might be something that's here to stay when we think about how girls want to do it. They're just often in different schools. Another lesson learned or silver lining is that we can use what we've already established with our social emotional learning curriculum and the trauma-informed mentoring and highly trained coaches, all of those skills that we have. We can use that to adapt pretty darn quickly to meet girl needs when we need to. It's the rock what you got approach is what we've been calling it. And that rock what you got perspective, I mean, that's what 2020 has forced us to bring our A game on. And I think that's a lot of what we'll be able to lean into in the future. We've also learned a lot about virtual coach training. I've missed being like physically together with all of our volunteer coaches. But figuring out how to do that in the virtual space has made volunteering more accessible for a lot of people. And we've also had to figure out materials distribution. some pretty serious problem solving with a mix of open houses, and many of you have been delivery elves or have gotten a little ring at the doorbell and someone's been standing there with your treasures for the season. That'll allow us to better serve rural communities in the future, and has made involvement more accessible in some ways, including this reach. So do you need closure on your numbers guess about how many schools? I need closure on what you came up with. Whoa, 72 is the most common guess. 124 schools represented on 40-ish teams this fall. Can you believe it? Is now a good time to say that it's 41 schools that are brand new to Girls on the Run, that have not had a team before, that are represented with just over 400 girls. That reach is really outstanding, and for sure that's a silver lining. Other stuff to note when we talk about some lessons learned so far, with race at the forefront this year, I think one perk has been that you, as our Girls on the Run community, have kept us accountable with our IDEA initiatives, that inclusion, diversity, equity, and access stuff that we've been working on. We've been able to offer enhanced volunteer training and host some special events. For example, I know some of you joined us in September for a screening of the documentary Push Out about the adultification of Black girls in schools. It was a really powerful and important film and topic, and that event, which included a powerhouse panel of local leaders, if you attended, I know you won't forget it. That event had a broader reach than anything that we could have done in person. And that's something we can take with us into 2021 and beyond, thinking about who can be in the E-room when we have some of these vital conversations, and other folks that we're able to connect with in this new world and in this new space. And speaking of Push Out, if you attended that screening in September, you might remember there's a part in the film where they say, if you're not talking about girls, you're not talking about racial justice and racial justice work. And I think that we have learned that the reverse is true too, that if we're not working for racial justice, we're not working for girls. And I think that's one lesson that we as an organization and personally will take with us from 2020, is that if we're going to see and celebrate all girls, that means acknowledging ways that we can do more with and for our communities of color. So I'd say that this year, it's forcing us to identify and name additional barriers that girls face, and hopefully it's leaving us better equipped to call out bias in ourselves and in each other and the systems that we're working in. A few other things that I'll add here when I think about lessons learned or silver linings include this Share Your Voice contest that I know some of you entered, that we did for girls and alums, to talk about how in 2020, what does it mean to stand up for yourself and others? And we're still accepting things. We had to extend the deadline because I know lots of you are working on poems or art projects or videos, to allow girls to speak, to give them a place to share their voice artistically or otherwise. I think we've also learned that access has got to stay a top priority, that it can't be something we push to the side because it's an emergency, that access is the emergency, and we certainly have accessibility concerns that we'll need to address for a long time. I'd say another takeaway is we appreciate our in-person time even more. We will be extra grateful for it when we're able to do it again with volunteers and with girls and with each other. What else would you add to that, Mary, when you think about what we've learned and what we got going on?
Absolutely. So I think as we talk about doubling down on equity, access, and inclusion, that also includes reviewing and changing policies and even our own curriculum to ensure that it's anti-racist, it's also culturally relevant. And we get to work alongside Girls on the Run headquarters to do some of that really important work right now, especially with applying that lens of Black and brown girls, experiences into the curriculum. Investing in those resources is more important now than ever. And we've been working on that since 2017, but in a year when BIPOC communities are significantly more impacted from COVID, we really are investing right now. And systemic racism, especially against Black women, is not a new issue, but COVID has really exposed the cracks in our system. And we as an organization have failings of our own to reckon with. And while we don't yet have everything figured out, and it's going to be a constant journey and process, that we know that this is critical, especially to best work with and alongside our Black and brown girls, our coaches, our communities. And it's something that we believe strongly in investing in. And we invite you to get involved in this work, whether it's through committees or coaching or using your voice through listening sessions, joining our board or staff. I mean, there are so many parts of the organization where this work lives and needs to thrive.
We're just getting started.
Yes. So we've really built Girls on the Run strategically these past 8 years to be really good stewards of our money. And a key definition of sustainability in the nonprofit space is diversified revenue streams. So many of you have supported us from being individual donors and running as soulmates, attending events, and by warmly connecting us to where you might work, your own employer. And those have honestly allowed us to be, that kind of funding, that kind of support has allowed us to be nimble and to quickly adapt and be flexible and also sustainable and, be able to weather this storm. And one thing that we've also learned over the last 8 months is that a very common thread for how we fundraise is getting together in person, whether it's celebrating at the 5K or getting together and hearing powerful stories at the luncheon, smaller gatherings that we do, even, coach trainings, things like that. And so now that changes, it completely changes for us. And so how are we responding? What we have realized is that people support us because of how we serve girls. And so we've shifted our focus. One of our first priorities was to ensure that all program fees were increase the subsidy. We know that after the 2008 recession, families had to look for either free or really affordable youth programming. And so we had to be prepared and were prepared to offer higher scholarship rates and decrease our program fees across the board. And we absolutely did that. We pulled the lever on expenses, and these were some really hard decisions to make. And again, the very first thing that we talked about and our framework around this was absolutely through any decisions that we made could not impact our highest need girls, and we needed to continue investing in our IDEA initiatives. And so we did staff furloughs and staff reduction. We negotiated expenses like rent, and we examined all of the expenses to ensure that we were really focusing them all on the mission. We also really switched up our contributed revenue mix. Our board and our associate board, those of you who are on tonight, you have been rock stars through all of this. You have done more work in the last 8 months than I think ever before. And we're doubling down on our one-to-one connections with individual donors. We have been picking up the phone and calling you. Thank you for answering. I know it's kind of a hard time to answer your phone, but we're grateful to have that connection. We're also really working on just elevating stories. There's so much power and connection in just hearing stories from girls, from coaches and families. We're excited to kind of lean into that. We did receive PPP funding, and we're really looking at so many different opportunities around COVID and emergency grant funding through places like the Minneapolis Foundation. We are getting creative, and it is going to take everybody. And I have to say, before I pass it over to Kathleen to talk a little bit about what gives us hope, one of my silver linings is that my own oldest daughter, who's finally in 3rd grade, we get to run our 5K together this fall. I've been thinking for a long time that, usually I'm working at the 5K, I wouldn't be able to run it, and we get to do it together. So that's my other silver lining, Kathleen.
That is a great silver lining. And one that I've got to enjoy too, because I've got a 5th grader and a 7th grader who are doing the program right now. And it is fun for us to be on the other side of that and think about how, even if we'll miss our big party, it gives us time to be with our own Girls on the Run girls. So Mary, I appreciate that reminder. We'll share a couple of things that are giving us hope. And there's a lot. I mean, you just heard from many of them and seeing our girls and coaches on full display. But the Girls on the Run magic comes in large part from connection and from those tools that we learn together, and neither of those are canceled. A friend of mine the other day was like, oh, you're probably not doing much now because, what does an after school program with the 5K do if they're isn't much school and there aren't gatherings. And I thought, that's not our magic. That's not our deal. We've got connection and a lot of the good stuff that we'll figure out how to shine through, that we are figuring it out, even in less than ideal circumstances. And we're seeing girls and we're seeing communities connect. And we just hear coaches sharing stories about girls using their feelings in real time. Just yesterday, I know some of you heard this from Coach Nicole sharing about how after the processing emotions lesson that they did virtually, the one where girls learn and practice the I feel when you, because I would like for you to skill, which works like a charm. So keep that one in your back pocket. Anyway, Coach Nicole shared that one girl used it on her mom and said, I feel happy when you give me hugs because I feel like seen and valued. I would like for you to give me more hugs. What? That's amazing. When we think about all the time that families are spending together and all the stress that girls and caregivers are under, like girls are gaining skills that they can use, not just in the future, not just in adolescence and beyond, but like literally today, right? Tonight at bedtime, they can use those skills, and tomorrow during schoolwork, they can use those skills. So that's one thing that's giving us a lot of hope. Our big goal right now is just to ensure continuity for girls, especially those who need the structure and support and another trusted adult in their lives to support them. So with that in mind, it's always on to the next thing, right? That we're hard at work preparing for what I know will be an awesome spring 2021 season. We're preparing for a condensed 8-week version, a season that will start in April with a brand new version of the curriculum with lessons that are designed to be delivered virtually or in person or a mix of both as needed. So coach registration will open for that next month and girl registration will open February 1st. And I'll mention too that we are seeking, I'd say 10 to 12-ish torch bearers to start community-based sites, meaning non-school based sites for spring. So if you're interested in doing that in your neighborhood or you know somebody that might be, we'd love to talk about it because the future's bright and we are finding so much hope and connection. But Mary, like you said earlier, it will take a lot and it will take everybody.
You're right. And you all are here tonight because you absolutely believe in the power of girls and you believe in Girls on the Run. You want to see it around for the long run for the girls in Twin Cities and in Greater Minnesota. And so tonight, before we jump into the Q&A, I really would love to see you consider how you want to support Girls on the Run for the rest of 2020 and into 2021. And our biggest ask right now is monthly donations. I know Kat's going to drop that link in the chat box, and monthly donations allow us to be able to project out sustainable cash flow and lets us know how much we can plan for the coming months and really helps us feel like a sustainable organization. Now, I know that you have a lot of places that you want to give to right now, and so there's other ways to get involved, whether it is through coaching, giving of your time, attending events like this, and just being a great Girls on the Run advocate. All of those roles are really important right now, especially in this next year as we navigate the ups and downs. And so we thank you for any way that you can be involved. And we're gonna head into the Q&A portion here. We have some great questions that were submitted in while you registered. So thank you for those. And please go ahead and drop any questions in the chat that you might have. Kathleen, I have a good question to start for you.
Sure.
What do the demographics look like of the girls enrolled this season, and what have we learned about the registration process this fall? That's such a good question.
That is a good question, and we're learning a lot. Whenever I think about what have we learned, it's like, what have we not learned? We are really taking a lot of notes where all of this is happening for the first time. Our race and ethnicity demographics are pretty close to what they have been in standard seasons. We're right around 35% participating girls identify as girls of color, and we have been 35 to 40% for the last 5 or 6 years per season. We still have a lot of room to improve there, and particularly with our coaches of color. We're right at about 10% coaches of color. which is where we have been for a while. So I'm grateful that we are not losing ground there, but it's definitely a priority going forward that we've got to recruit and retain volunteers that mirror the girls that are participating so that everyone can see themselves. I would say, what was the other part of it about registration, what we've learned?
Yeah.
About registration this fall? A few things that we've got to prioritize access in this new world, and that will leave a lot of people out if we just rely on the old ways of getting information out. If you don't have internet access, we need to partner with groups who do connect to technology. We need to partner with those who are supporting girls on the ground and school communities on the ground as everyone works to get devices and internet access into students' homes. We can't overlook that, and we are learning that like hoping for the best is not a strategy, but that understanding like what needs are out there and how we can work together to overcome some of those barriers. I would say something else we've learned about the registration process is that we've got to get in front of our offerings, really, so that when folks come over to see what they could sign their kid up for, all the options are already on the table. We were late adding our evening practice. We were late adding our noon practice. And we want to be flexible in making sure, if there's a school that wants to join late, that we can accommodate them. But we've also got to make sure that our rural girls or folks with barriers to transportation are able to participate when they see all the options available to them. So we got our work cut out for us to continue to tweak things, but I'd say those are a few things right away. Another question that came in from the initial registration is just about how Girls on the Run's addressing systemic racism, developing leaders and participants of color. And I know we've talked a little bit about this already, but Mary, I'm sure everyone would love to hear your additional thoughts on it.
Absolutely. So much like you just talked about, Kathleen, as we talk about needing to recruit and retain diverse coaches so that our girls see themselves in the mentors, the same thing is happening everywhere across all levels of the organization, whether that's board or staff or different committees, that it's so important that we can deepen our own community engagement so that all communities are represented at every point of the organization. We've also spent and will continue to spend a lot of time listening to girls, to alums, to communities that so often are underrepresented or marginalized when things are being built. And so we'll continue to do that through things like focus groups and surveys and figuring out, like Kat said, everybody likes to communicate in different ways. So meeting people where they're at. And that speaks so well to that, the goal of coach retention and just general adult retention within our organization. We continue to educate ourselves. We're working through this MAVA cohort, as you know, Kathleen, which stands for Minnesota Association of Volunteer Administrators. They have a specific cohort around racial equity in volunteerism that we've had the honor of getting to be part of the inaugural crew, and learning in so many different ways and immediately being able to apply some of these great tools, and just allowing us to be part of the statewide conversation happening about racial equity in philanthropy. And I think that's critical that we get to have a seat at the table and also listen and hear from some of these partners who have been doing this work for so long and so well. And then I think we talked a little bit about how we're doing this in more informal ways around hosting push out, coach book club, just spending time together talking about things that so often are not talked about in Minnesota. I think that's critical.
Yeah, that's so good. And I'll reiterate what we were saying earlier, that we're just getting started and we don't have it figured out by at all, but that our commitment to work on it is real, and our commitment to furthering this conversation with our community is real. Okay, there are a couple of other awesome questions that have come in, Mary, including one, just, do you need donations? How can I help? I guess you spoke to that one already, but that is a great question.
I mean, just like we said earlier, we are expecting the most number of scholarship needs, absolutely, in the spring, as well as our Project Gear Up kits for running shoes, clothes, sport to jobs. That, any of the funds raised will be put to immediate good use for just making sure that any girl that wants to sign up for Girls on the Run has access to it. In a lot of places, we're either the first or only one of many after-school programs for girls, and we love being able to give her that experience, and not just for her entire family. And donations don't just go to scholarships. They're also going to investing in coach training and their support. We know that coaches are the heart of the program, and just making sure that they feel completely supported and able to meet the needs of all of these girls who are experiencing adverse childhood events and traumatic things in this year. It is critical that we have really well-trained coaches, and our coaches are just fantastic. So I think we will use your donations wisely, and they're needed now more than ever.
Yes. Okay, here's another good one. Mary, what does the future look like with 5Ks being on hold and any virtual options? Oh, I missed the 5K. Scott talking about breakfast at the 5K. One day we'll be back there.
I know my husband misses helping park buses at the 5K. That's his glory. They're not canceled. We're just doing them virtually. And honestly, this fall, we are having some sites, if it's safe and they've been meeting in person, they get to they get to do a 5K on site. Otherwise, we're going to get to do this together, but apart. We will see what happens in the spring. I mean, so much is going to change in the next 6 months, and that's why we get to and need to be flexible. But our hope is at least we get to do some more site-based 5Ks in the spring, and then step back into the 5Ks of yesteryear, of what we knew pre-COVID, because we are certainly missing those inspirational mornings. Okay, I have a question for you, Kathleen.
Yep.
You talked a little bit about this with silver linings, but are there any other changes that Girls on the Run made during COVID that you think will continue into the future?
Oh, yeah. I think we'll learn more soon as our fall season wraps up, and as we hear from coaches and families about what worked and what didn't. I think we'll have more lessons learned than we've even identified just yet. But I'd say out of the gate, a couple of things. Our spring luncheon, some of you joined us for that event when we went virtual. It was accessible to everyone, and it was awesome. And so even when we shift back to some larger in-person events, I think we'll always live stream it so that people everywhere can participate and show their support. That's been something that I think will stick with us. This is small, but if you're a girl or a caregiver or a coach, hopefully you've loved it as much as we have. Journals. I really think that those journals are here to stay. Instead of having these one-off worksheets, this season with the virtual curriculum is kind of the glue that would hold the virtual or in-person practices together with our fluid kind of hybrid model. We have these small bound journals that have different activity sheets within them, and they have just been so well received, and they're beautiful and they're fun. So that's one thing that I think is here to stay. And then I did see a question about if we plan to offer evening teams in the spring. Yeah, if there's interest, if we've got girls and coaches. And honestly, when my now 7th grader was a 3rd grader, she did an in-person evening team. It was 5:30 to 7. And at the start, that was awesome. But this time of year is when it got rough because it was totally dark out, So in the fall, we got to consider daylight savings if it's going to be dark at 5. But otherwise, yeah, I think our evening teams or creative timing teams could be here to stay. Other stuff off the top of your head? Mary, anything else I'm missing around what will stick with us? We already shared a bunch of them, I guess, but such a good question.
It is a good question. And this question kind of ties into it. Are we planning to offer Girls on the Run at non-school sites or during the summer?
Oh, yep. We're working on it with non-school sites, and we'll need your help. There are a lot of moving parts. There are a lot of variables. And one big takeaway that we have had in trying different community sites, even pre-COVID, is that the ship needs a captain, and that if we can have an awesome site liaison or torchbearer willing to say, hey, I want to start this in my community. I'll help book the space. I'll help get the word out to recruit. That's the ticket to a successful community site. And so we're working hard to recruit 10 to 12 torchbearers for spring to get that going. So yes, 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 on the non-school sites. Some of you know we have had some fantastic non-school sites in the past at local YMCA or at a affordable housing complex, that type of thing. And we've got to go where girls are to meet them. And then, oh yeah, and you asked about in the summer too. Yes, camp. Oh, we had to cancel camp, of course, in July. Camp Girls on the Run is our 1-week program. that we were able to do successfully in 2018 and 2019. And there is a magic to it. It is 10 wonderful weeks squished into 5 days. And we are hoping and planning for Camp 2021. There are a lot of factors, obviously, but I'm visualizing success for it, and I think we'll plan accordingly when we start to see how things shake out.
Fantastic. I have one final question here for you before we wrap it up, unless anybody else has questions in the chat, but it is election week, and I mean, everybody's tension and stress is running high, and I know that this is top of mind for our coaches and girls. They're talking about it at practice. They're feeling the stress from their caregivers. Talk to me about what kind of Girls on the Run lessons you're pulling out to talk to your own family about it, or how should we be talking to our kids and using Girls on the Run skills as we enter what is a stressful week?
Oh, I wish I had all the answers to that. I wish that there were an easy fix, but I think top of mind, at least at our house, and maybe for many of you, has been the uncomfortable emotions. When we talk about untangling emotions and realizing that it's okay to feel sad and scared and angry, and we've got to deal with those feelings instead of shoving them under the rug, right? Recognizing that emotions aren't good or bad. They're just comfortable or uncomfortable. I think empathy is one that I've been leaning on and trying to put myself in other people's shoes. And what else do we say? See their star and respond in a way that shows we care. And stop and take a breather. That comes up again and again. I know that was a winner in the poll, close to a winner. But I mean, stress levels are so high, and we have got to take care of ourselves as grownups and as grown-up girls, right? And as human beings right now, in just being gentle, take a breather, and also using our voice when we can, right? Standing up for ourselves and for ourselves, I guess, and for others. There's not an easy solution to any of this, and our communities are in crisis. And I think if we lean into our Girls on the Run core values of empathy and connection and belonging, our communities, what will get us through, and I'm hopeful that it will bring, our Girls on the Run involvement will bring us a sense of hope in what's a really scary time.
Absolutely. I think my virtual team today was working on their community service project, and it really, again, highlights to me that girls are not just the leaders of the future, they're leading in their communities today, and that is giving me hope, and I will rely on that for the next few weeks to come. And with that, I think we are out of time. It has been such a fun hour with all of you. Again, please join us for the K Your Way on November 7th and 8th. It's free to register. It's going to have lots of fun surprises, and it'll just be nice to spend some time in community together next weekend. So please join us. And I hope that we get to gather again here creatively this way, but together as soon as possible. And thank you so much. We'll send out the recording. So if you need to see this again, to relive the magic, it'll get to happen. Just thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, everybody. I feel a silent wow coming on, Mary. Do you? For everyone and their involvement, maybe?
Yes. 1, 2, 3.
Thanks, everyone. Great to see you.